how to comp a property, a residential property, using Zillow for free. If you find yourself saying, hey, I'm looking at this house, it has cash flow, but I wanna make sure I'm buying it at what it's worth or below what it's worth. So I'm gonna show you a very basic way to comp a property using Zillow and a little spreadsheet here. And let's dive into the content. So here I have a little spreadsheet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be looking for 5 different houses, a minimum of 3, but I really like to have 5 different houses here. We're gonna look at the number of square feet, the sales price, and the price per square foot, okay? So let's dive into Zillow and let's just go, and I live in Atlanta. This will work in any sort of market, so don't really worry here. And we're gonna come to houses for sale. And what I'm gonna do is, let's say that we're gonna go inside of this neighborhood here. Let's look at this house. So 217 Felding Lane Southwest, Atlanta, Georgia. This is gonna be our subject property, and this property has 1,720 square feet. So we're also gonna put that in the number of square feet, and the asking price is $285,000. So I'm gonna grab that as well and put this in the asking price, and they are asking, right, $166 a square foot. So what we want to do is figure out what are other properties like this one selling for. So when we're comping properties, the first thing to know is we need to find properties that are actually comparable. I wouldn't go compare this property here, which if we're looking at it is just a simple old brick house, nothing fancy. We really don't even have pictures on the inside. I'd prefer to have pictures on the inside, but I wouldn't go compare this to a property that was, brand new with a 3-car garage and had sick landscaping and blah, blah, blah. We want to find comparable properties. That's what comp's for, comparables, right? So we're gonna look around here, and what I'm gonna do, again, that property is right here on this little circle. I'm gonna come to houses that have sold, and this is the process of actually finding a comp. Now, I'm gonna click the More button, and I'm gonna do sold in last, and I really wanna find the most recent comps. If I look at properties that sold 36 months ago, we're shooting this in July of 2022, right? If I went and looked at properties that sold 36 months ago, 3 years ago, I'd be looking at properties that sold in July of 2019, or any time in between, whenever we really had a huge shift in the real estate market. So we wanna compare with where the real estate market is today. We don't wanna be comparing with where the real estate market was 3 years ago. So for that reason, I like to do closer the better. So I would choose 30 days if there were numbers of properties that I could choose from, but we also have to have a big enough number of properties that we can actually go and look at. So if I were to choose like the last 7 days, right? If we take a look, like no properties sold in the last 7 days, so I can't use that. Now, I could come in here and I could look at, let's say 30 days. If we look at 30 days, okay, one property nearby here, another property nearby, still really not good enough, to be honest with you. So I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna look at 6 months and see what all we have sold. Now, here's the deal, right? We were looking at the property right inside of here. This is a major Interstate 285. I'm not gonna use any of these properties, right? Again, I wanna find comparable properties, and I'll bet you that this neighborhood is much different than this neighborhood. And same over here, I'm not gonna use these properties. I'm not gonna use these properties. I'm gonna use only the properties that are closest, and I would prefer to have properties that are on the same exact street, if at all possible, okay? So again, let's kind of zoom in here, and I'm gonna start using some of these properties. Now, I also wanna go to home type. I looked at a house. I didn't look at a townhouse. I didn't look at multifamily. I didn't look at condo. I wasn't looking at lots. I wasn't looking at apartments, and I wasn't looking at manufactured homes. I only wanna compare to other houses, right? So again, 217 Fielding Lane, that was right here. Here's a great property. Let's see what this one looks like. So we just have a simple picture, and are there any descriptions of the property? No description of the property, so I can't use this one. It did sell for $335, but I don't know if it's a good comp or not, right? So now I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna take a look at this house. Here we have a 3-2, very similar, old brick house. Let's look through the pictures. Looks like this property needs some work, mainly cosmetic work. Looked like it didn't need too much. Let's go through and read some more. I don't see any sort of details on that, right? But I'm gonna just use this as an example, okay? We're gonna take this address, I'm gonna paste it here. Number of square feet, this one has 1783. And the sales price on this one actually sold for $172,000. Okay, now remember, this property needed some work, okay? So if I can find a better comp, I'm gonna use a better comp, okay? Now, let's go through and let's try and find another comp. Again, I want a minimum of 3. I would prefer to have, 5 or more. The more, the better, honestly. The more, the better. So we can't use that one. Let's go take a look at this one down here. So this looks like a pretty good comp here. We have, we can click on the street view. Pretty basic, old ranch house. I don't see any sort of garage. I don't see any sort of, sick landscaping or anything like that. This one doesn't have a carport. So that's one thing to be a little bit different, but let's take a look. This one, we don't see how many square feet it has, but we saw that it sold for $220,000. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this, right? And then I'm gonna do Command F and I'm gonna look for the county here. So it looks like, let's see the county, boom. I'm gonna go to this county tax assessor, which I believe was Fulton, state, Georgia. Fulton County. Okay, property search, agree. And I'm gonna look this property up, 451 Haldane Drive Southwest. And then we can see, just make sure this is the same property, confirmed, on the corner. Oh, there's a carport in the back. Okay, awesome. So now I'm gonna look for square feet on here. So here we have residential improvements and it shows a 3.2 with 1845 square feet. Residential square feet is what that is. So now, Zillow didn't have it, but we know this is 1,845 square feet, 1845. And we also know that this property sold for $220,000, right? Perfect, so this sold for $119 a square foot. Okay, now we're gonna try and find some other comps. So let's keep looking through here. Let's see, we saw this one, we used that one already. Let's see, whoops, too far out. Let's take a look at this one. This is a pretty nice looking property with, so we'll use this one as a comp. And we'll paste it there. Number of square feet, we had 2517. And this one sold for $370,000, $147 a square foot. Okay, so now what we can see here, guys, is, and we've already gotten 3 comps. Again, I'd prefer to find 5 comps. We could keep doing this, but we've got an average price per square foot on these comps at $120 is the average price per square foot. And we've got an estimated fair market value. What that is that's our estimated value of this house that we're looking at. And how we got that is we took the total number of square feet and we multiplied it by the average price of the other comps, which gives us an estimated fair market value of $207,952 when they're asking $285,000, okay? Now, this isn't a perfect method unless you have really good comps. I'm not finding great comps here, right? Because this property definitely looks a little nicer. The other one needed a little more work. I'd prefer to find, really more properties just right here in this general area instead of having to go out. And this is the thing, right, is even real estate agents, real estate appraisers, this is a game of selecting your comps, right? So if I were to kick this comp out, and instead if I were to use this comp, which again, not a great comp, this is definitely a newer house, it has a garage, but for example, if I were to replace this comp with the first one, I'll show you what will happen here. Let's click this one here, let's get rid of this tab. And let's do 1775, boom, and let's do sales price 365,000, boom. Oops. Drag this down. Cool, so that sold at $205. If I were to use that one, if I were to get rid of comp 1, watch my fair market value, right? If you remember, it was at $207,952. Just by changing my comps out, I got a fair market value of $270,000. But I don't think this one's a good comp because it was built so much sooner. It has a garage. I personally wouldn't use that. But this is how people can justify high prices whenever, this is why you really need to check your own comps, right? Because you don't need to trust what other people are using. This is also a way that you can manipulate other people. You can give certain comps to real estate appraisers, people buying your properties, and you can try to swing the price in your favor by selecting good comps for your properties, kind of how I'm just showing you. But this is the process of comps. It's all about what comps you select. But let's see which other ones I would use if I were buying this property on Fielding Lane. Did we already do this 220? Yes, we already did that 220. Just trying to find some in this subdivision here. So this one right here sold on, just a couple weeks ago. This one looks like a pretty good comp. 2-car carport, I like that. So this one is 1430 square feet, right? And it sold for $182,500. And the address, 644 Felding Lane. And let's drag this down, 127 a square foot, so that bumped us up a little bit. And this is probably true, right? Because this one probably needed, maybe just in the condition that it was in, it probably needed $30,000 to $40,000 worth of work. So if we were to add, $20 a square foot, that'd bring us up to about $219,000. So I would say this house here, again, if we go back to the house that's for sale that we're looking at for $285,000, it looks like a clean property. But what I would say is that this property is probably not worth $285,000. It's probably worth somewhere between $220,000 to $230,000. This property up here that was on, like this one's selling for $500,000. If this were a sold property and it sold for $500,000, not a great comp. It's just so different. The square footage is different. Use similar properties. Use them in the same area. You should not be going multiple streets over. You should not be looking more than 6 months back in time in order to find your comps. So that's how I go through the process. If I'm talking to people about how to value a house, then this is how you do it. Now, if you want to value commercial real estate, you have to do it off of a cap rate. It's not based off of fair market value. That's what we talk about in Skip the Flip, is the difference between those two and how the income is what produces the value inside of commercial real estate versus a market approach is what considers and produces the value on a residential property. So that's the difference between the two. If you want to know how I'd go about finding comps for commercial properties to get those cap rates, drop me a comment and I'll make the video if enough people say they want that. That being said, be great. Do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Weekly real estate content, helping you reach financial freedom every single week. Be great.